Hi, Ann.
Hi, Wayne. Well, I'm here.
Technology giving you a fit?
Yes, it is. It is. So I did all I knew how to do, and it may be something I have to take it in for. I don't know,
hmm
but here I am.
Yeah, I was actually on a Zoom call earlier today for something else, and one of the participants had the same problem that he could not get his camera on.
Really?
Yeah,
So I guess he was cooking too, huh?
I, I don't know.
No, this is totally legit. I promise. Uh, how has your pedestrian life been since the snow around here?
Actually, it's not bad. I mean, there was one day that I was concerned on 158th Street. There's a particular corner that's on an incline, and that side of the street was not cleared. So you have to walk on the other side of the street. But then I noticed, folks diligently clearing a path, and, now that's not an issue.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of those crossings were cleaned up yesterday when it went up to 33 or 34 degrees.
When it
People
went up
were
to
actually,
spring, yes.
yeah, yeah, or one day of spring,
Yeah,
right?
yes. But the problem is when you get to, the curb in many cases, you can get to the curb and then there's like a little lake of muck as soon as you step off the curb or, there's one corner, I think it's 159th or so, where there's like a 6 foot high mound of snow at the
Yep,
corner.
yep. I've been wearing my wellies. Because it's not the snow. I don't need to keep my feet so much warm, but dry.
Mhm, mhm.
I don't want to step into a shin high small lake.
Yes. So we still have a few,
Two minutes.
yeah, let me see. Hi, Naomi.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good.
I'm
I know
co-chair
Amy.
of traffic and transportation, just showing up here to support um, and be able to speak on behalf of parents in the community as well. So, a couple of hats, just here to also be a community member as always. And
Yeah.
yeah, just wanted to
And
say
I also reached out yesterday or the day before to both Leo and Steve Simon separately because, I thought, there are traffic and transportation, implications of the application that I thought TNT might want to speak to with them directly. And also there's a rather extensive environmental assessment that I thought Health and Environment might want to speak to. And it's not unusual when we're dealing with, you know, uh, applications such as this for, land use, which will ask all the questions it want to, but will say that, there are other committees that have jurisdiction over, X, Y, or Z. And we suggest you speak to them. And, the other committees will often feed their comments into land use. But, it's kind of hard to have a detailed land use, traffic, environmental, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, discussion all in one meeting. And so if you split it up and then you combine the input, which we've done a couple times in the past, that makes it easier.
yes, I agree. We are all just public safety and I'm sorry, environment. Steve Simon was on our call on traffic and transportation. So we all agree that we're going to come here and support. We did a walkthrough last Friday as well.
Yeah. But I mean, my point is that the entire conversation of all the other committees need not happen in land use because our purview is the zoning actions. The
Yeah.
other committee should feel free to invite
Thank you.
the
Thank you.
applicant to come to them and to speak about their
Mhm.
issues.
Yes,
I totally agree.
we are in agreement.
And Leo, I see your hand up.
There we go.
Leo?
Why don't you make Leo a panelist?
I thought I just did that.
No, I don't see him. Now he is, yeah.
There we go. Thank you, Wayne.
You're welcome. So where are my committee members?
I'm here and Eitan's here.
Hey, everybody.
Why
Hi.
do you look out of focus, Eitan?
I think it's because my background is blurred.
Well, but when it works right, you're not supposed to be blurred. Yeah, well, technology, right?
And Eitan, are you taking minutes for us?
I certainly can if you need me to.
I would really appreciate that.
I will get on that.
It's 7:02 and we have quorum, but I'm going to wait a little bit to give other folks the opportunity to join.
Oh, we get to see Audrey's office so nicely.
Yes. Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing well.
And I see you better on my iPad than I do on the big screen in the office.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I have the fancy iPad where everything is very clear and big.
That sounds great. I feel like that's an iPad is on my list of next purchases, maybe after tax time.
Oh, I do everything on my iPad now. I write papers, everything.
There's Jacob.
Hi, Jacob.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
And where is, let me get to that. No, it's not what I want. I have to get back to working in Zoom. How about that? So Melissa, I see your hand. Melissa? And there's Vivian.
Indeed, foolishly in the lobby of community board. Well, if I go home, I will miss a key amount of time, so it's better just to stay here.
Oh, exactly. You're inside and you're warm, so keep it that way.
Exactly.
So it is 7:04. We have quorum. We actually have all land use committee members present, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. I am Wayne Benjamin and I chair land use for Manhattan Community Board 12. And before we get into the agenda, I would like to have my fellow committee members introduce themselves. But since there have been some changes, I'd like to begin with two brand new members of the committee and start with them. So Hector and Jacob are newly appointed to land use. So Hector, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Wayne. How's it going, everyone? My name is Hector Bonilla. This is my fourth year on the community board, born and raised in Washington Heights. I also serve as the vice chair of the licensing committee. And thank you for the amazing, warm introduction, Wayne. Happy.
You're more than welcome. And Jacob, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Jacob. Also a member of Community Board 12 for 4 years now, and previously serving on Public Safety and Youth and Education, currently also on the Health and Environment Committee, and very excited to be jumping in with the land use.
Thank you. Welcome aboard, Jacob. So going to my other committee members, I'm going to call you as I see you on my screen. So Eitan.
Hi, all. My name is Eitan Steinbaum. I've been on the board since May. I'm part of this committee, and I was part of Parks until very recently, but I will be joining for the first meeting of Concerns of the Aging tomorrow, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Jim.
Hi there. I've been, I think two people mentioned you were on the board for 44 years, and I've been on the board for 44 years. But of course, with term limits, that will end at some point soon. I'm happy to have our new members and relatively new members of the board with us. And I'm also on traffic and transportation, which is sort of involved with all this, or part of what we'll be discussing tonight.
Great.
And one more thing, I happen to be the parliamentarian. I get appointed to that.
Thank you, Jim. Vivian.
I'm Vivian Ducat. I'm a Washington Heights resident, and I'm the public member of land use, and I've been that for over 15 years.
Thank you, Vivian. And Anne is having trouble with her camera, but Anne, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our new members. I'm a member of this committee, and I'm also a member of the Concerns of the Aging Committee, and happy to be here. If not visible, sorry about that.
We will forgive you for that. And we have a number of other board members with us, I think representing traffic and transportation, but that really relates to the second or third item on the agenda, depending on how you're counting it. I want to begin with a discussion with the representatives from the Fort Tryon Jewish Center. And, those of us who've been on the board and the land use committee for some time know of the, I guess, the past discussions about the former location and the development project. And I was introduced to Rabbi Guy by Liz Ritter, another CB12 member, a couple of months ago, if that much, via email, indicating that there are, plans afoot for a new synagogue. And I think they mentioned it briefly at the general meeting, and they're here with us in land use to just give an overview of some of that now, because I think you're pretty early in the process.
Yeah.
So someone might want to mute themselves, but Rabbi Guy, why don't you take the floor, the screen, as the case may be, and walk us through where you are.
Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. Really grateful to have an opportunity to talk with you. I'm here with Zach Cohen, who is a leading member of our congregation who's been working very hard and deeply on our building project. So I'll just give a quick overview, and then Zach will share more information, and we're happy to answer any of your questions. We're basically just here to share some good news with the committee, tell you what's going on, and answer any of your questions that we can. As we shared with the community board a few days ago, the Fort Tryon Jewish Center has been a part of the Washington Heights neighborhood for over 85 years. We were founded in 1938 here in this neighborhood and had a building on Fort Washington Avenue across from Bennett Park by the A-Train entrance for many decades. In 2008, we lost the use of that building and had to begin renting elsewhere. And there was really a lot of uncertainty about the future of this former anchor of the neighborhood, of our congregation. And thank God I can say that we've hung on and we've thrived. We're now about 150 member households, including many young families, and nevertheless, like we've been renting in different locations around the neighborhood for about 18 years now, and it's been precarious and uncertain. But we can share now that we've actually secured what we believe will be, with God's help, our future home, and it's right here in the neighborhood, which means we can stay committed to this neighborhood that we love for hopefully for decades to come. I would say 98% of our members live right here in Washington and Inwood. We're a very local community, and here we are. And so, as I'll let Zach share the details.
Hi, thank you, Rabbi, and thanks for everyone for giving us an opportunity to, as the Rabbi said, share exciting news about our new home for the Fortran Jewish Center. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Cool, great. Okay, so we are excited to, as the Rabbi mentioned, our historic home was located at 524 Fort Washington Avenue. I'm sure many of you have seen our building, and we in 2008 began a renovation project that we were not able to continue and to complete, but we sold our building to Amalgamated Bank in 2021. Since that time, since 2008, have been searching for our new permanent home, and are pleased to share that we've finally secured one, and within probably a couple hundred feet as a crow flies from our old building. We sold the building in 2001, and the sale proceeds of that are helping us carry forward this new vision. In 2025, just at the end of this past year, we purchased the property at 4311 Broadway at the corner of 184th Street. So it's on 184th Street between Broadway and Bennett. You can see here just a photo of our old sanctuary and of the stained glass windows, which when we sold, we were able to remove from the old building, and we look forward to carrying and incorporating into the design of our new space to bring some of our history with us. So the site that we purchased, people may know as where Q-Mart used to be. It's an existing one-story restaurant supermarket building. And our plan will be to demo the existing structure and to build a new synagogue building, 2 to 4 stories. We're working with building studio architects who have designed a number of congregations and other community facilities around the city, and we're in good hands with them. And we hope to build a space that will have room for a sanctuary, a social hall, some classrooms for our youth programming, and offices for the rabbi and for our synagogue's education director. And it will be our new home, hopefully, for the next 80, 90, 100 years in the neighborhood. We think it's going to take about 3 years. So we'll spend the next year designing the building, getting some good feedback and input from our congregation and members, and hope to begin demo shortly afterwards, likely in 2027, and build and within 3 years, hopefully be able to move in and welcome everyone to celebrate that with us. So happy to answer any questions, share more about what we're thinking. We're at the early stages of design, so I wish I could share renderings, but we don't have those yet. And the other thing just to share is that we have appreciated the generosity and collaboration of other congregations that have opened their doors to us. And so if there are inquiries from community organizations that might be in need of space, we plan to use our space throughout the week and really hopefully thrive there. But to the extent we may have space to offer to share or rent, we would love to be a resource to the community.
I see Jim's hand, but could you very quickly tell me how deep that site is? It appears to be fairly narrow.
Yeah, it's so I'm gonna just go off my memory, and this may not be exactly, but I think it's around 85 feet deep. And it's I'm not sure how wide it is at its widest point. I can tell you momentarily, but it's at least 35 feet wide. So, you know, we when we were searching for land, we had parameters based on other community facilities and synagogues in the city, specifically in Manhattan, that have been developed. And this exceeds what our minimum to accommodate our program was in every direction. So it's definitely a narrow space, but it's you know, it kind of widens towards the eastern part of it, and synagogues generally tend to face east. So for us, the space suits our needs well, hopefully.
Jim? Jim, you're muted.
I'm working on it. I have to find this thing to push and all. But anyway, I just want to mention that I'm so thrilled that you're getting a new building. You're building a new building. You're not getting it, and that's a wonderful thing for this neighborhood, because the Jewish community has always been a very significant part of it. Well, as long as I've been alive, and and from before then, obviously, because I had parents. Um, the only other comment, so I think it's just wonderful. It'll be interesting, and I'm sure we will all be invited to see this wonderful edifice when it's finished. You'll have a sort of long, narrow sanctuary, so that'll make things interesting for your architect. But again, I think this is just a wonderful thing.
So looking at this site plan, it occurs to me that, you know, the project will be coming back to land use because I see it's in a C83 zoning district. And folks who've been on land use for long enough knows what that means, because years ago, we asked city planning to rezone all of those C83 zoning districts because they are, I think they're sort of automotive focused, and they don't allow for a number of community, facility, and residential uses that are beneficial to the community. So whatever is designed there will probably have to go to BSA, the Board of Standards and Appeals, for a special permit to change the use. So we'll be happy to, you know, work with your team on that as well. But it's amazing how some things that, you know, our recommendations, had they been acted on, and I do mean years ago, that wouldn't be an issue for you now, but you know, those CA3 districts are still, you know, scattered throughout Washington Heights and Inwood, and they're really of no use to us.
Thank you. Yeah, I as a neighborhood resident just a few blocks away, I appreciate that insight into the zoning, and whether, you know, it's relevant or obsolete at this point. I think my understanding is that we anticipate that what we're doing is as of right because it's a community facility. But if that is not the case, we definitely appreciate you know, the enthusiasm and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have to check, and clearly your design team is going to do a zoning analysis. I don't recall, although we do have representatives from city planning with us, but I don't recall C83 zoning allowing for community facility uses. It allows for, I said, automotive, and I think it allows for some, you know, sort of general commercial uses. But I don't know. I mean, a church would be considered a community facility use, and I don't know if it allows, but you know, that's for later. Any other questions, comments, folks? I don't see any hands. Committee members, board members?
I'll just share that it's 37 feet wide, so got 2 feet off of my recollection, and it's 125 feet deep. So
Okay. Hector.
Thank you, Chair. And Chair, please correct me if I'm overstepping, but are we able to ask what percent of this structure will be financed versus the proceeds from the previous sale? Is that something we're able to ask?
We can certainly ask, sure.
Yes, so I forgot the gentleman's name.
Yeah. Yeah, so I can share that, you know, we plan on having a capital campaign to help raise money from the community and from our membership and folks who want to support us to help us move the project forward so we can build hopefully everything that we hope and dream for our future. Yeah, hopefully that answers the question at least partially.
If I could just interject as the parliamentarian, there's
Yes.
stuff we can ask, but you know, obviously whoever we're talking to doesn't have to answer. So, you know.
Yeah.
I
Or
mean,
they
this was, you know, this is totally appropriate, but on the other hand, you know, maybe with some other organization, they might not want to answer a similar
Yeah.
question. But
Or I was going to add to Jim, they may not want to answer, or at this juncture, they may not be able to answer because they don't know the full cost of the project. Because I mean, it hasn't been designed, it hasn't been put out to bid. So, I mean, you can develop an estimate, but you may not know at this juncture what percentage. Jacob.
Yes, thank you. I was just going to say that I think it's a good point you raised about the zoning being C83. And as I'm jumping into land use, I'll have to say that I have so much to learn about the various zoning regulations and all that. I was trying to do a cursory glance of the city's website, which does the website on commercial districts does seem to suggest that community facilities are allowed in C8 districts, but I don't know. So I guess we'll have to come back to that. But just to say that I live around the corner from this lot, and although I'm sad to see the Q-Mart leaving, I think this is a wonderful thing that would be stepping in its place. So very excited to hear about these plans.
Leo.
Thanks, Wayne. Putting on my hat as the chair of the Traffic and Transportation Committee, this area has a history of being very congested as it approaches the major thoroughfare of 181st. Is there plans to speak to DOT after the fact that after you erect the development of the synagogue for proper signage in front of your synagogue? I believe DOT grants it for synagogues. Just because, as you know, the area, parking is an issue with the 34 precinct about 200 feet away. Yeah, so is there any plan for that in the near future?
When you say signage, you mean signage related to parking and
Yes.
traffic?
Yes.
So
Yes.
we are, as we develop plans, you know, we'll incorporate, you know, we'll be reaching out to all relevant city agencies where necessary. I can't speak to the specifics about parking in front of the building, you know, or not, but we're aware of the congestion, and hopefully, you know, a non-automotive use in the neighborhood doesn't in any way contribute to that concern, and hopefully we can help alleviate it. But
Thank you.
That's, yeah, to be determined.
Anything else? And yeah, Melissa, I tried to promote you before and it didn't appear to work, but you should be a panelist now. Jim, is that a new hand?
yes, it is. Because I just wanted to mention this. We have a church on Wadsworth Avenue, and this may not be an issue for you at all, depending on how your congregation runs itself. But we have a church on Wadsworth Avenue between 178th and 179th and 180th Street. And they have parishioners who come by car. And it turns out the buses that go by there take pictures of the cars because, as far as they're concerned, the buses are, I mean, the cars are not where they're supposed to be, and they get tickets. Now, that may not be a problem at all for you, but you know, it's driving this poor church crazy. So that just came to my mind.
And the majority of our members, as the rabbi said, live within a couple blocks, which is why we're so thrilled that we were able to find a site that's so perfect for us and so close to our old building. So we don't anticipate that would be, most people are walking, and I think most of our members probably don't even have cars. But yeah, I think I don't think that would be a challenge for us.
And it's also Broadway, of course, so they're going to be. But of course, right up the block from you, which is probably a good thing, is the police station. And they basically do what they want. They're allowed in a certain number of blocks to just do whatever they want with the street regulations. So there's sort of a bottleneck on Broadway there anyway. So probably if someone stopped in front of your shul, that wouldn't be a problem. And again, they just dawned on me. You certainly do have the police to protect you right nearby. That's probably, unfortunately, in this day and age, a very good thing.
Thanks, Jim. Anything further for the representatives from Fort Tryon Jewish Center? Well, hearing and seeing nothing, thank you so much for joining us. And as I said, I'm sure that your architectural and engineering team will, check my comment on zoning, and if there's no discretionary action required, that's fine. It's just as I mentioned, this C83 is a throwback to the 1961 zoning, and it's not quite clear why it was even mapped at that time, because in many instances it's mapped over, residential and commercial buildings, and that kind of zoning is inconsistent with the buildings it was mapped over. But that is, something that if it does require an action, it's something that you would come back to the community board. You would come back to the community board once you've gone through an application with the Board of Standards and Appeals. And, that's something we've dealt with on many occasions. As a matter of fact, we're dealing with a similar type application as the next item on the agenda. So it's not something that's at all insurmountable.
Thank you. Well, we hope we can proceed as a right, but if we can't, we definitely appreciate the warm reception, and look forward to continuing to keep the community updated about our plans, and hopefully, God willing, celebrating a groundbreaking and a ribbon cutting in the near future.
Great.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the opportunity, and hope that this will be something of benefit and a positive for the whole neighborhood. And we really appreciate the reception and the time. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So the next item on the agenda, as I mentioned, it's an application that was submitted to the Board of Standards and Appeals by Zeta Charter Schools, and it's for a special permit, not a zoning variance. And I think I mentioned when I was giving an update to Hector that the issue is the site is split between two different zoning districts. That's incorrect. It's split among 4 different zoning districts, but 3 of the 4 allow the construction of, a school as a community facility use as of right. But the C83 portion of it, which is like, I think, a third of the site, does not permit that use as of right. So be clear, in some cases when applicants go to the Board of Standards and Appeals, they're looking for zoning variances because they need to increase the height of the building, or they need to, increase, the bulk or something like that. That's not what this special permit is seeking. It's seeking, the ability to build something on a site that the underlying zoning, or on a part of the site, the underlying zoning doesn't allow that use. Jim and Vivian will probably remember when the Radio Hotel came to us years ago. I mean, that entire site, which is a former gas station, that was like C83. So, and part of it was residential, but most of it was CA3. So there were a number of, retail and commercial usage that didn't quite fit. So that's why they came to the community board through BSA, for a use special permit. So I am going to turn the floor over to the representatives from Zeta to walk us through the application and what's being requested. And we were having a little conversation at the beginning of this. So the land use committee is the one that is charged with dealing with the wonderful world of zoning and multiple zoning districts and all that means. But as we were seeing the location, just like with the proposal for the new synagogue, there are traffic and transportation issues that come into play. And there are a number of board members who are on the traffic and transportation committee that will have, some questions, but it's also my expectation that the traffic and transportation committee will invite the applicant to, to come and speak to them in detail about those issues, because this is not the, the ideal place to do that. Similarly, although I don't know if there's anyone here from the health and environment, the rather extensive environmental assessment statement, which I skimmed through, the Health and Environment Committee may have some questions on that. Years ago, the chair of that committee was also a member of the Land Use Committee, so there was some, cross-fertilization, and some of those discussions happened in land use, but then continued in health and environment. But, he's no longer on the committee, so that may be another separate invitation to discuss, the several thousand pages long environmental assessment. And of course, this is for a charter school, which currently is in operation. And so I guess this is an expansion to accommodate more grades once the students in the current facility can graduate and move on. And so there are probably a few board members who are on the the Youth and Education Committee that, have questions about that operation, the existing operation, and what that portends for the, the new, that will have some questions, but also I suspect that they would want the applicant to come to Youth and Education to speak to them in more detail. So that's just kind of an overview. Jim, I see your hand.
Right. I wanted to reinforce what you were saying, particularly in terms of traffic and transportation, and I'm probably reading the mind of Leo Jimenez, who is our chairperson, because the permit or whatever it is you're asking for involves, safety at the intersection, traffic safety at the intersection. You should definitely come to the Traffic and Transportation Committee. And the other piece of it is, I believe, for exactly the same reason, what we would probably want is a joint resolution among maybe more committees than just land use and traffic and transportation, so that this joint resolution would reflect all of the various aspects we get to comment on concerning this project.
Yes, we've done that in the past. That makes sense.
Thank you.
But with that, the floor or the screen is yours. So who will be leading off the presentation? David?
Yep, that'll be me. Hi, everybody. Thank you all for your time. We really appreciate it.
Jim, you still have your hand up, right? Okay.
So thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. Also, always appreciate, this is the second time, I think, in 2 months, Wayne, where I've come before you, and you have beautifully laid out the entire application, so I can do a lot less talking, which I also really appreciate. My name is David Schnackenberg. I'm with Fried Frank, Harris, Schreiber, and Jacobson. My colleague Jeremy Kozen is also here. We're joined by Zeta Charter Schools. Jesse Ferguson, I think, is somewhere. Where are you? Do we see Jesse in the room?
Yes, I see Jesse raise the hand. Can
we promote her to a panelist, please?
I think I just did. Let me know if that works.
Thank you. Yep, there she is. Great. And we're also joined by the project architect, which is KSS, Ken Muraski, and VHB is our environmental consultant. They prepared the very lengthy EAS, which you mentioned, when we were joined by Elizabeth and Jason. I think that's the whole team that's here this evening. We have a brief presentation for you, just to sort of forecast, right, what we're up to. Schools are not permitted as of right in C83 zoning districts. Zeta is interested in Zeta, which, by the way, already, as Wayne said, already has a school and has matriculating students in the Inwood, Washington Heights area, needs a place to put those students as they get older. We need a middle school, high school. Zeta has worked really hard to find a site. The site that they found is mostly in an as of right or in several as of right zoning districts, but a portion of the site is within a C83 zoning districts where schools are only permitted with a special permit. And so we've made an application to the BSA authorizing the school to use the entirety of the site, including the portion that's on the C83. So that's what we're up to. We'll do a brief presentation where we're just going to sort of introduce you to Zeta, walk through the findings and the application that's actually before your board. And of course, we're happy to speak to any other committees that you'd like us to. And then KSS is going to sort of walk you through the project and tell you sort of what we're excited about, because it's going to be in your neighborhood. And then we'll take any questions that you may have, and we'll do our best to answer them. Anything that we can't answer readily, we will respond in writing, and happy to do so. So that was already more than I thought I was going to say. Let me just...
You should be able to share your screen.
I should be able to. The question is...
If you're not,
I think I've got it. Can you
Good.
see, are you able to see something? Let's see.
Yes, it loaded, yes.
Oh, great. Okay. So actually, this is just a quick view of our sort of an illustrative view of what the site's going to look like. But I'll turn it over to Jesse to sort of talk a little bit about Zeta.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for your time. My name's Jessie Ferguson, and I'm from Zeta Charter Schools, and we're really excited to share our project tonight. Just to lead us off, I wanted to share some background about Zeta and our school model. We are currently operating in the Inwood area, and our mission is to ensure that every child in America has access to the highest quality, free education from pre-kindergarten through 12th grade. We opened our Zeta Inwood Elementary in 2018, and we currently serve pre-K through 8th grade in the neighborhood, and we will continue to add 1 grade each year to the school until we can serve pre-K through 12th grade. Next slide, David. We have a really innovative school model. We start with world-class academics and make sure that students are learning at a very high level, and that we use a data-driven approach to ensure no student falls through the cracks. We're one of the top performing schools in all of New York City, which we're incredibly proud of. We partner that with a focus on innovation culture. At the center of all of our schools is a Zeta Innovation Lab, or a Z Lab, where students get to engage in hands-on learning, including starting with our pre-kindergartners up through college, up through high school, coding fluency, digital learning, using things like 3D printers and sewing machines, and really engaging in a hands-on way to apply their academic learnings in a meaningful way where they can experiment and learn. We have a robust social emotional learning program for all students. And we also have an incredible specialty program where students get to learn and pursue their passions for free during the school day and after school. This includes music like piano, violin, viola, cello lessons, having an orchestra. We have a big taekwondo program, art, soccer, dance, and much more, which allows students to really become, well-rounded kids who learn what they love and get to dive into it with high-quality instructors during the school day. And we also partner closely with families to ensure that they're equal partners in their students' education. Next slide. This facility, the proposed facility, is going to be an expansion for us into our high school grades, as I mentioned. And we are setting up an incredible high school program that is going to really be the capstone of all that our students have worked for. Our high school program is highly individualized so that students get to pick different class pathways and choose the way they graduate and what they focus on and learn through electives in a way that best suits their goals and their passions. I'm particularly excited about our college readiness commitment. Throughout New York City, you see families spending incredible amounts on SAT tutoring and college advisors, and we're providing that all to students for free during the school day so that they can excel on their SATs, gain AP credit before they matriculate to college, and also have help finding a college that's not only will accept them, but is a great fit for them. And overall, we continue our commitment to innovation and being future ready so that students are learning and set up for success in the ever-changing technological modern economy. Next slide, David. Some of you may be familiar with our current location. This is our Inwood School at 401 West 218th Street. It's reflected in the purple dot at the top of the map on your left. And currently we're serving pre-K through 8th grade in this facility, although as we'll continue to explain, it's above capacity, and this project is designed to allow us to grow this just as an elementary school with a middle and high school down the road. The proposed facility is the pink dot in the middle of the screen, and that's the site we'll be discussing with you tonight, which will be the permanent home for middle schoolers and high schoolers at Zeta Inwood. And finally, to help us bridge the gap, because I said we're serving 9th graders next year, we have secured a temporary facility down at the bottom on West 164th Street, where we will start growing our high school while this facility is being built. Next slide. Here are a few images just to give you a sense of our current school. We have really thoughtful design promoting light and color and energy so that students have a beautiful, clean place that they can learn, and they're really joyful spaces. We're excited to continue this in our future middle and high school site, although matured for our older students. Next slide. And finally, just to give you a sense where students at this facility will come from. As I mentioned, this top line shows our current facility up on 218th Street, which will ultimately become an elementary school. We have our temporary high school facility where we'll grow our high school grades until our permanent facility opens. And if we can complete this project as planned, we will move our middle school students and our growing high school into the permanent facility, fulfilling our promise to families in the neighborhood to serve their students from pre-K all the way up through 12th grade. We also accept students beyond our elementary grades, so we will accept new applicants who may join us in middle school or high school at the facility. We have very strong demand for seats at Zeta Inwood, receiving about 6 to 9 applications per open seat, and that's often higher with our higher grades. So we're really excited about the project, about having another home in the community and continuing to serve students in the neighborhood. And with that, I'll turn it back to David.
Thanks, Jesse. All right. We'll get back to the site and the findings. Just to take a quick look, this is sort of to orient everybody. The site that we're talking about is at the corner, the northwest corner of Broadway and West 181st Street. Normally, when you make an application for a special permit in one of these zoning districts where it's required, you're surrounded by that zoning district where you've got, a C83 or an M district, and you've got all of those uses. But as you can see here, this site is surrounded on 3 of 4 sides by residential and mixed-use neighborhoods. And so most of our neighbors are multifamily or mixed-use residential and commercial. You all know the neighborhood pretty well. It's really only just to the north on Broadway, really on the west side of Broadway, that we've got the commercial district. This is the site.
Is the former RKO.
The RKO site, yep.
Yes,
Yep.
okay.
This is the former RKO Theater, really cool building with a long history in the neighborhood. And, KSS will talk a little bit about how that inspired the design of the school. But here's our site. Like I said, corner of West 181st and Broadway. There are 2 existing public schools in the neighborhood, PS 132, PS 528. Those are it's really useful to have public schools. It means this neighborhood is sort of used to the flow of students coming and going, and they're just a block away. And again, the site, as you can see, it's sliced among 4 different zoning districts, but it's only the C8-3 zoning district that we're concerned with. Everywhere else on the site, which is about 75%, we can construct the school entirely as of right. And when we say as of right, that's only speaking to the use, the bulk of the school, the size of the school. We're not looking for any waivers for that construction. Everything about the built form is permitted. So the special permit we're here for, it's really simple. There are, there's 4 main findings, and then you've got to be in a C8 district. And so again, we're just this corner, or in the C8 district. We have to qualify as a school under the New York State education law. Zeta does qualify as a school under the New York State educational law. There's no residential accommodation in the building. And so then we get to our 4 main findings. The first, which is sort of the threshold, which is there's no way that we could build this school adequately sized, no reasonable way that we could build this school in a zoning district that's entirely as of right. And the way we establish that it was very easy here, because Zeta's been working for a long time to find this site in the Inwood, Washington Heights catchment area. Zeta's worked with a broker. That broker, I think, identified 26 sites. Of those sites that were sort of 26 sites in the catchment area that were appropriate. Of those, 9 were entirely within a permitted zoning district. And again, we're 3/4 of the way there, so we feel pretty good. But of those sites, none worked, right? They were either too expensive, they were slated for development, they couldn't accommodate any open space. There were sort of issues with all of them, and that's in our application material, which has been shared with the community board. But we believe we've established that there was no practical way to build the school on a site that's entirely as of right. The next finding, pretty critical in most cases, but not at all here, right? The school has to be within 400 feet of the boundary of a district where it's permitted as of right. Ding, ding, ding. We are within 0 feet of 3 of those districts. So we feel pretty good about that. And the next 2 findings really speak to the interrelatedness of students in non-residential districts, right? So does the school adequately sort of protect students from the indicia of commercial C8 and manufacturing districts? And certainly that was easy here, because we're not surrounded by traditional manufacturing uses or gas stations or automotive uses. When we heard what you said about the C8-3 sort of, the leftover zoning districts, and we agree. But here we're surrounded mostly by residential buildings and mixed-use buildings, and so it's very easy for the school to sort of meet the window and wall, the sound attenuation, no noise or air quality issues are going to impact the students, and that's all detailed extensively in the EAS that was prepared by VHB. And then our final finding, that movement of traffic throughout the street can be controlled so as to protect students going to and from the school, and that's really sort of, when I was at BSA for years, this was the finding that we really want to focus on, right? It's pretty hard to argue that a school use isn't a great use, but is the school use in a place that students can get to safely? And indeed, the application will be referred out to DOT's own school safety department, and they sort of are the real vanguard of making sure that the students are safe. Here, again, we're almost entirely surrounded by as of right zoning districts, so it's a much easier lift than it is in other applications where you're surrounded on all sides by automotive uses, for instance. We have 1 automotive use north of the site on Broadway, but as we'll discuss later, Zeta has programmatic controls that are going to sort of mitigate that. They're going to post teachers and other staff outside so that students don't walk on the west side of Broadway, which is where that gas station is located. And because there are 2 schools in the neighborhood, there are already a great many pedestrian safety measures. Those are shown in black on the screen. And in addition to that, Zeta is proposing additional signage and additional safety measures that will make it even safer for students as they come to school. Not on this slide, but the subway stations are all south of the school to the east and west on 181st Street, which also helps. And that's sort of going through the findings. I'll take your questions in a minute, but I did want to give Ken Brasky of KSS just an opportunity to show you the building that we're really proud of. The building's not really the subject of the application, the physical building, but we like it and we wanted to show you what we're thinking of.
Thank you, David. I see we have a question. Do we want to wait until we go through?
That's up to Wayne.
Leo, is this a question that has to be answered now, or can we complete the presentation?
Complete the presentation. Yeah, I just have some comments.
Yeah, okay.
No worries. Thanks, David. Once again, my name's Ken Moraski from KSS Architects. We've been working with Zeta for quite some time and looked at this site for quite some time, and we're happy to be here tonight to present kind of the first rendition of the exterior of the school here. Many of you may know the site. This is taken from the southwest corner looking at the school on West 181st and Broadway. The site is a pretty sloped site along 181st, so you'll see that our building's kind of nestled within the site a little bit. It's an 8-story building with a rooftop playfield. It's about 148,000 square feet. The entrance to the building will be off of Broadway, and you'll see the building wraps the entire corner. The design of the building is kind of two parts. This kind of more solid base out of a brick material that's evocative of the warmth and texture of the theater that used to be on the site. We were really kind of taken away by the beauty of that pre-existing building, and so we wanted to utilize some of that texture and that color in the material choices that we're looking to make on the base of the building here. We also found that because of zoning, we have to create this base condition, and then there's a setback, so we thought that really worked well with the proportions of the previous context that was on the site. Above, which will be the classroom floors, and we'll look at some of the plans in a minute, is a little bit more of a reserved, kind of formal grid-like appearance up above that will be set back from the street line. And then at the very top, there will be a playfield rooftop, and we'll show a rendering in a minute of that is surrounded by a netted structure for the play activities. Next slide. So I'm just going to go through a couple of the plans just to orient you on the building. This is the ground floor plan. Like I mentioned earlier, this building is nestled kind of in the ground a little bit because of the site topography. So the first floor has the main large programmatic spaces for the school. You might have heard Jesse mention that part of their mission is to give their students all these opportunities to thrive and go on their individual paths. So one of the big programmatic elements of this school is to provide a full high school gym with bleacher seating. That's the large pink rectangle on the left, but also provide a fully functional performance theater, which is the smaller pink rectangle, more plan right and up at the top, with a black box theater. So, getting all these large programmatic spaces on one level was quite a challenge for us as the architects. So part of what we did was to minimize the amount of circulation on this floor, devote it mainly to these large programmatic spaces, but also have the main entrance for the school. And that's why it's the school entrance is off of Broadway, because that was how we were able to fit all these large kind of puzzle pieces together. So this entrance is solely for the school. You enter off Broadway, there's security, there's the reception, main lobby space, and then from there, students can go to the elevators to go up the rest of the building or access the auditorium and gym spaces. And then you'll see there's a lot of like utility spaces that are needed on this floor as well. Next slide. As we move up the building, you may have heard Jesse mention some of the kind of special curriculum and spaces that they provide for their students. So this is the 4th floor, which is that top floor of the base that you saw in the rendering. At this floor, we'll have the music spaces. There will be some counseling center, teacher workspaces, but also art, the library media and tech space, and a chess room. Next slide. And as we continue to go up the building, we're now up at the upper portion. This is a typical classroom floor, just showing you a very efficient double-loaded corridor. This floor is the 6th floor in particular that has the 7th and 8th floor classrooms. And this floor is typical all the way up till we get to the rooftop, which is the next slide. So this is a plan of the very top of the building, the rooftop playfield. We're providing a half-size regulation soccer field and then a futsal court, kind of putting those two together and utilizing this rooftop space for as much outdoor open space as possible for these students. You'll see in a minute, we'll have a rendering just showing kind of how the space looks, but this rooftop playfield is bracketed by the 2 bulkheads that provide the stairs, restrooms, and elevators and mechanical spaces that serve the building. That's the one that you see on the right, and then the one at the top of the plan. In between those 2 bulkheads, we've identified here there will be a full height acoustical barrier fence. And the reason we put that there is to mitigate any sound from transmitting from this rooftop playfield over to the nearest residential neighbors, which are just to the west of our site on Bennett, I think it's Bennett Place. So that's what's indicated here in orange. Next slide. Imagine if you were to slice through this building like a piece of cake. This is a section view of the project. Again, showing that kind of nestling this building into the ground, utilizing that topography. We really wanted to try to get as much height in those bottom floor program spaces, the gym, the auditorium. So here, what we wanted to just demonstrate was kind of showing how students will be using the building during the day. When they enter the lobby, they'll take elevators up to one of their classroom floors, whether that's the middle school on levels 5 and 6 or the high school on levels 7 and 8. And then throughout the day, they'll circulate down the staircases to either the cafeteria on level 3 or their robotics labs on level 3, or the specialized learning that I showed you in the plan on level 4, or they'll go up to the rooftop playfield up at the top of the building. Next slide. And I think this is the last image. I wanted to share just a preliminary view of what the rooftop playfield will look like. This is looking north from the soccer field. So, as I mentioned, that acoustical barrier fence, which we've shown in a Zeta purple, this is one of their colors, is shown off to the left side of the rendering here. That will be an acoustical barrier that prevents sound from transmitting through it. And then you'll see that the whole rooftop playfield is surrounded by this light frame steel structure that will support a netted enclosure to keep balls and stuff from flying off the roof. But I just wanted to leave it there. I think, David, this is the last slide, correct?
Yep.
And happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So, Leo.
Thank you. And thank you, Ken, David, and Jesse for the presentation. My name is Leo Jimenez. I am the chair of the Traffic and Transportation Committee here at CB12. I formally want to invite you to our next month's committee meeting, just so we can have further discussion. Our experience with Zeta School on 218 has been pleasant, coming from the staff down to the operations, dismissal, arrival operations. The school seems to cause a lot of chaos in that area. We've tried to work with them, with MTA, who has a depot nearby, DOT. We've taken plenty of tours with staff members of the school to try to fix these issues. Sometimes you go in that area and you won't get around a block radius within 20-30 minutes because parents are triple, quadruple parked onto the next lane. It's a mess. It's chaos. Believe it or not, that area, it is pretty busy. There's a hospital nearby. It's on Broadway right before the bridge, but it isn't as busy as 181st. 181st Street is a major that occur in our community. Here you can get buses to go to Jersey, to Bronx, obviously throughout the district. Train stations on both sides. On the west of the block, a couple blocks east is the one train. Commercial, like you mentioned, corridor in the other area, police precinct about maybe 250, 300 feet away, the gas station. Cars traverse this area to get to Jersey every day. It's been a constant issue we've had at our committee level, and it's ongoing discussions with DOT. Obviously, the discussion, you guys have an application. We would love to have you at a committee, but as a community member and a community patron, someone who lives here, I just don't think it's a good idea, this area. And again, we would love to have you at our meeting to further discuss. I'm going to leave it at that.
Why don't you tell them when the committee meets?
Yes, thank you, Wade. So it is the first Monday of each month. Next month, March 2nd. March 2nd at 7 p.m. We can provide a Zoom link if you cannot make it in person.
Thank you for the comments. We appreciate them. We will think about sort of our response, and we'll certainly come and speak to your committee. I do want to just point out, and this is not dispositive, of course, but there's a difference between an elementary school where students are being dropped off and parents are picking up, and a middle school, high school where students are taking public transportation. I think that it would be, we would expect it to be much less impactful in terms of vehicles going to the school, but it is adding students. I don't want to be dismissive of what you're saying. We hear you. We will come back and discuss it with your committee with maybe some data that we can also include in the conversation.
Awesome. I'll include my email in the chat. Also, this is a question I've had for a while. What percentage of students at Zeta currently in the middle school, elementary school are from our community?
Jesse, do you have that?
That's a great question. I don't want to speak off the cuff. I can get you more details, but we do prioritize admissions for community members. So it is a large portion of our population.
That information may be in the package. I forwarded the email to you, Leo.
Yeah.
And if you click on that, there are like 12 documents. So the breakdown of where the students come from is probably in one of those.
So I checked that it's about 12 different links.
Yeah.
And I can see the demographics of it. That's why I was curious.
Right. But Jesse can certainly follow up on that
Yes.
question
Yep.
directly.
Please.
Tanisha, I can't hear you, although you don't appear to be muted. No. Are you plugged in? We'll come back to Tanisha. Noemi.
Hi, it's me, Noemi, co-chair of Traffic and Transportation, and I want to wear
ENT is in the house.
yeah. I also wear a hat for Council District 6 parent leader. And I had the pleasure the other day of walking with our chair and DOT by that area and just realizing the congestion without the school there present. Right? Just like what happens on the daily basis. So a little bit about me, just a native Washington Heights resident showing up here as a parent leader. Also, funny thing, we were at the district leadership team meeting today, and our district is currently a local and improving good standing. So wanted to make a note of that, where we currently are as a district as a whole. So we have many seats available as well throughout many of our schools that we have within the district. So I don't see the prominent need for this space. It is beautiful, hands down. I love the structure. I love every single space that you guys are offering. We definitely would love to have buildings like that serve all of our students in this community. But a couple of things to make note of is that in our parent meeting leader that we have, a lot of the complaints come from the current school that you guys have by 218 and the congestion that brings to our community at large. So we are concerned currently with you being at a space that we have within our community to then moving to a very congested space that is also historic and iconic, because I used to work at the Coliseum that was there many, many, many years ago. I don't want to date myself, but yeah. So just thinking of bringing a new building into our space, we do want to hold, I guess, reverence to that space that was there previously. So that's just a question that I had. If so, if it was possible that this application went through, um, would there be any type of space memories for what was previously there? Uh, that was one of the places that I first went to as a child to see a movie, and it was in walking distance, right? So just a question in the mix of everything that I said. And thank you for the thought of coming to our community and offering such a beautiful space, but in a way, no, thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy, were you going to respond or?
Well, yes. Hi, this is Jeremy Kozin. I'm a colleague of David's Land Use Council at Fried Frank, Harris, Shriver, Jacobson. I just want to draw, Leo, your attention specifically. Wayne mentioned some of the links that were provided. The EAS, which is the environmental review document, speaks to the analyses associated with how many how the students and how the staff arrive at the school, how that is reasonably projected, and I think that would be very insightful for you and your committee to take a look at prior to when we graciously come to your. We appreciate the gracious invitation to come to your March committee meeting, because I do believe that, unlike in elementary school, as David said, auto pickup drop-off percentages for a middle school, high school are significantly less than they are at an elementary school. And the analyses, I believe, bear that out. Most of the students and staff come from the subway and come from public buses.
Jim.
Thank you. I am a member of the Traffic and Transportation Committee, as well as Leo and several others. In fact, way back when I was chair of the Transportation Committee, actually way back when I was chair of the board, but enough of that. So I just want to give you a preview of where where my mentality is coming from. Okay, 181st Street and Broadway is an intersection of two major streets, although most of the commercial stuff actually happens east of Broadway. Things are not quite as busy, in terms of big commercial west of Broadway. But these are major commercial streets, and that's very significant. Another thought I had, well, I'll save that one for later, but I'll get back to it. Now, the prime consideration, obviously, is the safety of the people, the children. I was a teacher. We care about them too, coming to school and leaving school. But, because of the importance of these two streets, the movement of traffic is also extremely essential for the well-being. And it's not just, all traffic. So it would mean ambulances, it would mean, other emergency vehicles. And so this intersection is a very vital one. The other piece of it is that, you mentioned that, and the environmental statement is a document, I think someone mentions like 2,000 pages long or something. So if you could tell us where about in the EAS this material on how people get to school is, that would be very helpful, because it doesn't seem particularly well organized for finding things. So
Jim, I can tell you right now, that's chapter 6.
Thank you.
And it's if you're looking at the PDF, it starts on page 84 of the PDF.
84. You are already my hero for giving me this information.
And Jim, we'll circulate a sort of we'll take out those chapters and we can circulate just the short version for you if you like. We're happy to do that as well.
Well, we can find things, but that might make it much more convenient, and we would appreciate that.
Okay.
Now, another thought, and I'm again just speaking for me, and the two major issues. Well, actually, there's this third issue hanging in the background. The two major issues, as I alluded to, or didn't allude to, I said, were the importance of the safety of the people who work in, go to the school, and well, I don't know if it's equally important. We won't get into that. That's too philosophical. The importance of the maintenance of traffic on these two important streets. One thought that came to the back of my mind, and again, this is total, hypothetical nonsense probably, is maybe they made one of the sites C83 because they didn't want a school there. I mean, by making it C83, unless you jump through hoops, you don't get to build a school there. And maybe some planner said, actually, this is an intersection where we really don't want a school. Now, that's just some hypothetical noise.
It's not at the intersection.
At the intersection.
Yeah.
What do you mean? It's right at the corner.
But the CA3 part of it isn't at the corner.
It's over 100 feet north.
Oh,
of the
I'm aware of that, but the point is there was one building that spanned that entire property. So, but again,
we can look into the zoning history.
oh, absolutely. Well, then another thing which may explain it also is, remember, I've been around, if you look at me, for years and years. Further north on Broadway, there were a whole bunch of car dealerships and stuff way back when. So they may have, had this as an extension of that. And that was just some hypothetical thought I had. But the main thing is, the peripheral thing, and you've heard about it, is that unfortunately you come to us, Zeta comes to us with a bit of a shadow over them, because as has been mentioned by several speakers, your handling of traffic, up at where your current school is, from what we've been hearing for years now, is horrendous. Now, it's not all your fault. Apparently, you have some, parents who are not particularly cooperative either. But, we don't want it there. It's still going on there, although maybe not as bad. And we sure as heck don't want it on 181st Street and Broadway. So that's, and just to put the icing on the cake, insofar as, God forbid, well, maybe we won't go that high since we just had a temple come before us. But heaven forfend, we have chaos there. Among other things, it will make the street more dangerous for everyone. So I think and again, I'm only speaking for me. I don't read the minds of my other committee members at TNT. But that intersection and how you handle that intersection and how you handle the coming and going of the students, unless that's done perfectly, it can endanger everybody and have, even worse ramifications. And, I mean, at the extreme, and I don't think this is possible, since it is a middle school, will be a middle school and junior high school, maybe we could say nobody comes by car. But again, maybe there's a kid who needs to come by car service. Maybe there are disabled kids who need to come in a little school bus, So, but again, this place you've chosen, is problematical, and I'm an optimist. So, assuming you do things right and everybody does things right, which again is not occurring at your other location, Zeta's other location, it'll work. But unless that's the case, it won't work, and it could be a spectacular disaster. And so I just wanted to mention that.
So
Thank you, Jim.
Let me just point out for the applicant, but also for my committee members or the board members, other attendees, that it's already been established that the Traffic and Transportation Committee has invited the applicant to come to their March meeting, and we know, or those of us who have been on the board for a while, know about the history of traffic-related, I won't say issues, traffic-related chaos at the site further up. The purview, however, of the Land Use Committee is really, the zoning-related issues. So the extent to which there are issues related to other committees, by all means, raise them and invite the applicant to attend whatever the next meeting of that committee is, but we can't have a detailed discussion of, traffic or environmental issues in land use.
Oh, I understand that, but I just wanted out of courtesy.
No, I
to
understand. I
give
was
them a-
sharing that with
give them a-
everyone.
Right. I
No,
wanted to give them a preview
We,
because,
we appreciate that. That's a forecast that's very helpful, and we're going to sort of prepare it with this in mind. And I do
Yes.
appreciate it. I do want to just briefly point out that, as you can see on the screen, notwithstanding this C83 quadrant, the use is permitted as of right at this intersection. We're not looking for something that's not permitted as of right. It doesn't mean that you don't have valid concerns with traffic and congestion, but I did want to sort of remind the group of that. And also, I almost lost my train of thought. That was my main point, but also to say, we are going to go, as is required, to DOT school safety and work out this sort of school safety plan, which will involve restrictions on how people do come to the school, the inability of cars to load. We're going to really take that into consideration as we go to school safety. We're happy to share school safety's comments that we receive with you when we receive them. And we are going to work really hard to address this programmatically, as well as through any other sort of signage or other things that we can put on the site.
Thank you, David. Melissa.
Hi, I'm also traffic and transportation.
Wait a minute.
I know, but I was not, I love traffic. It was my first meeting, but I'm
just lost your lighting for some reason.
Well, you can.
We can hear you. Yes.
Okay, you can hear me. I was land use last month or the month before when you came, so I was.
And you abandoned us. Yes.
I know. I was transferred to traffic and transportation, but I love it so far. So, but I guess I just wanted to piggyback off of what Jim and Leo and maybe Noemi were saying, but I did review actually in depth that paragraph 6 of the environmental assessment statement, and the numbers. I think for traffic and transportation, what we're going to want to know is what. How are these numbers reached? Because there's so much data in there. And I think, being residents of Inwood and Washington Heights, like we know that area and we know that it's a traffic nightmare. And I just thought it was interesting that the photos that were also submitted kind of showed no traffic. Whenever those photos were taken, it was a pretty calm time at that. I've never seen it that calm before. But I think we're going to want to know, like, how is the analysis conducted and how do you come to know how many cars are actually going to be dropping off each student? Because I saw something, they have like an analysis of how many cars each day per student, or who's taking the bus, who's taking the train. I would be interested to know how the projections for Inwood, as an Inwood resident living off of 215 myself, and that being a traffic nightmare every day, how do the projections before Inwood Zeta was built compare to the actual transportation issues that are going on right now, as somebody who deals with the traffic every single day in the area? So I just forecasting, I think that's kind of what I'm going to want to know on that committee.
That's an interesting point, Melissa, because well, actually, I don't know if the Zeta site in Inwood, went through NES, because I don't know if it had to go through DSA, but someone must have looked at what the expectations were, vis-a-vis traffic, and it would be interesting to compare what the expectations were versus the reality.
Yeah. Let me just add. I don't believe the Zeta Inwood site went through any discretionary approval process. So you will not have a environmental assessment statement or impact statement to kind of compare apples to apples or even apples to oranges, because this is a high school. What I will just add, and we'll be more than happy to share this with the Traffic and Transportation Committee, but for those who will not be at that committee meeting but are attending this committee meeting, I can share that the methodologies that were used in this environmental assessment statement are multifold and are the methodologies that the city requires us to use when doing this transportation analysis. So just for example, they have what is known as the Seeker Technical Manual, CEQR Technical Manual. We have to follow that when it comes to temporal distributions, when are people coming, modal splits, so that's how someone comes to the school, whether by car, by bus, by train, or walking are based on prior environmental impact statements that were done and also observations that the city accepts for the specific community. So there's a methodology that's required by the city agencies as to how one makes these determinations. There is also data provided by various different national planning studies. That's the bulk of where the data comes from. We're more than happy to get into greater detail or on a more granular level at the Traffic and Transportation Committee, but I suggest reading the full chapter 6 of the PDF.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ethan.
Sure, thank you. Thank you guys for coming to present. I guess I really have more of a procedural question, so this could go to any of the presenters or to Wayne. It doesn't, I don't know what's going to happen tonight, but it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of support, and it also looks like y'all might need to go to Traffic and Transportation, some of the other committees. So what is that timeline going to look like in terms of joint resolutions for or against, and also what's the timeline for the BSA application?
So the BSA application has been filed. We should appear for our initial hearing at BSA in about 2 months from now. We haven't been calendared yet. We wanted to come to you very quickly, so we actually reached out the second that we filed. We wanted to make sure that we were able to have this fulsome conversation. BSA asks community boards to respond within 60 days with a recommendation, but that is not an enforced rule, and so the short answer is that you have whatever time you need to make whatever recommendation you need. You don't need to come with a joint resolution. You can, generally what you'd see is, or what I've seen in the past, I can't speak to your community board, but if 2 committees both want to sort of make a resolution to the community board, and then the community board will issue its vote and will issue its findings. It doesn't necessarily have to be by committee, but that's certainly up to you all. We don't drive that list.
Yeah, I mean, Ethan, we have done, whether it's for BSA or other things, we've done joint or multiple committee resolutions in the past. And, we sort of, although one committee may have gone through its analysis and have its recommendations, in the past, we thought it was kind of, feckless to have, multiple resolutions on the same project or the same thing. So we've kind of waited and combined the recommendations into a single resolution for the full board to consider. That being said, one of the things we also need to be mindful of is what is under, or what BSA has jurisdiction over and what they do not. So like going through the application, they have the authority or the responsibility to deal with the zoning related issue of, permitted use. And as part of that, one of the findings pertains to, the transportation public safety. So there is, a link to, all of these pedestrian traffic issues that we're talking about, because that's, I think, one of the 4 areas that BSA looks at when they're seeing whether or not that use request is done. There may be other legitimate issues, but BSA doesn't have control over them. And for another project unrelated to this, where folks didn't like the proposed rent of units, or they didn't like the proposed supermarket for rental space, BSA doesn't have control over that. So the resolution, we could say, well, we don't like the proposed tenant, we don't like this, we don't like that, but they don't control that.
Sure, thank you.
Tanisha.
Can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So, thank you so much for your presentation. My name is Tanisha Grant. I am the chair of the Youth and Education Committee. I hope you're coming to see me because
You're inviting them, are you not?
That's Wayne. Let me do this. So yes, we would love for you to come see us. Our meetings are on the second Thursday of every month. I don't have my calendar in front of me, but that second Thursday, that is when they are on. They are at 6:30. I want to echo all of my colleagues. As the Youth and Education Committee, we hear a lot of complaints about charter schools. And we will be talking to you about all of them when we see you at our meeting. Thank you so much. Also, I will say that 181st, and even if we're talking about high school students, you see how the high school students are when they come out of school? Very high schoolish, very standing around, very having conversations, very doing what high school students do, which would very clog up that area that is already clogged up. And I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chair.
Jacob.
Thanks, Wayne. I have two quick questions. And if this veers outside of the purview or normal way that land use operates, please, I will happily rescind my questions. As I mentioned, I'm brand new to this committee, so I'm still learning how we operate here. But I won't belabor the point about traffic. I know Leo has invited you guys to come speak on that part. I do want to echo that, as people have said, it gets very congested there. So I think that's worth having that discussion. My question is actually more on the environmental side. And again, I haven't had a chance to read the documentation on this, which I will happily do, but wondering how much health and environment might want to get in on asking some questions on this. The proposed location for your school is incredibly close to I-95, which is a major, major thoroughfare. And so just wondering if you guys have had any analysis into how air pollution may be a problem for your students at that location.
Isn't there an air quality section to the AS?
There absolutely is.
Great, then never mind. I will look at that. The second question that I had is on the timeline. So I know we're talking about going through the zoning appeal at the moment, and I believe this may have been mentioned on one of Jesse's slides. I might have missed it. But assuming that all of the zoning applications go through, could you briefly speak to your target timeline for construction and then for opening? I know we just heard from another group that was talking about a construction project that would be going on directly across from the police station about 2 buildings away. And so just trying to get a sense of how those projects stack up against one another.
Yeah, I can answer the analysis year question. I can also turn it over to Ken to speak to what is known at current relating to, or Jesse, relating to construction timing. The environmental assessment statement assumes an analysis year of 2028. That means that by the end of 2028, the building is opened and has a TCO. That's the requirement. And that's based on what is a 22-month single-phased construction period. That's what's studied in the environmental assessment statement. I can turn it over to Jesse or Ken if you have any greater details about other timing aspects of the construction.
I can speak to the construct. Right now, we're targeting a May 2027 construction start date. I mean, that's contingent on a lot of things falling into place to get there, but that is our current target for construction. And
Okay.
Jesse, I don't know if you want to answer the school opening question.
Sure. With that timeline, we would look at a school opening in summer 2029 for the 2029-2030 school year.
Right. And just to note about the distinction there, the school is not going to open mid-year, like in the middle of the year, just if it's ready.
Yeah, so we have our construction timeline and then we build in additional time to make sure we're ready for students and can open in time for the school year.
And Jacob, just for your reference, I did also forward the information on this application to Steve Simon with Health and Environment, and suggested that they may want to look at it. They may want to invite, the applicant. So, typically Steve and Health and Environment will pay a lot of attention to the AS.
Yes, I'll talk to him about that. Thank you.
Indiana.
Thank you, Wayne. I had one recommendation and then a couple of questions. one recommendation is whenever you have your meeting with traffic and transportation, as well as with the MTA, to please keep wheelchair access top of mind, and especially if there's a bus stop on that corner. It's super busy. The M3, 4, 5, I think I'll go through there. So just keeping in mind like where the stop is in relation to schools. The other things that I wanted to raise, one is I'm not sure, but I just want to flag for the committee and for other community board members, we should maybe also check if there's any cannabis task force, resolutions that we've passed or anything like that that we should keep in mind whenever we're considering this project. And my question is related to that. My understanding is that there's some sort of like footage that a cannabis shop needs to be from schools. And so I just didn't know if that had been part of the analysis already, or if that's something that we need to look into.
That is not the subject of the application, and so I haven't done that research myself, but I'll get back to you with the question of sort of what the rules are about locating within, there are probably several uses that we have to keep distance from, and we'll get back to you unless Jesse has already done that. But we can certainly brief you in writing.
Just to be clear, that is not part of the BSA application, and we are not cannabis lawyers or.
Sure.
So the rules around where a cannabis store can be located, or if one exists, what uses can come in after the fact. That's not something zoning regulates or the BSA special permit.
Okay, no worries. And that's something that we can certainly, I guess, explore within the community board. So I don't need you guys to like send me the rules. We've got like a cannabis task force. I'm also an attorney. I can look that up. I just didn't know offhand. So I don't think that we need that, but it may be a discussion for the community board internally then.
Yeah,
and to be clear, sorry, Wayne, but just to quickly just interject, the special permit would not obviate any of those requirements, right? So BSA approving the special permit, as Jeremy said, addresses sort of what would be a zoning objection at DOB. But if there are other requirements about distances or proximity to other uses, those still have to be met. Those are not sort of taken out of the equation. This is a small piece of sort of the larger puzzle.
Yeah.
Since you guys are already partially zoned for schooling, I guess, you said like 3 out of the 4 lots.
75%.
Yeah, exactly.
75% of the site approximately can have a school as of right.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hector.
Thank you, Chair. Just to quickly note on the cannabis front, prior to the disbandment of the Cannabis Task Force, I was the vice chair of the Cannabis Task Force, and the nearest dispensary is Spark Bros, which is on 177 and Broadway, and there's no proposed other locations nearby.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, my question is regarding, it's 2 parts. The first one is, in terms of busing, because, most students who have an IEP are entitled to some form of busing, and I'm not sure if you plan to have that. And I looked in chapter 6 of the packet that was sent over, and I didn't really see anything regarding which facade of the building do you plan on having the buses, I guess, park up or pick up the students.
Yeah, so I can answer that question. So first, as of right now, there is no proposed school busing for this school. The Zeta does not provide busing unless a kid qualifies for it through the city due to where they live or special education needs. But I can tell you that there are existing DOT signage both along 181st Street and Broadway that either has truck loading that are somewhat vestiges from the prior uses. So for example, on the western side of Broadway, right now there are 2 signs in front of our property. One is no parking anytime, and the other is truck loading only, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That pretty much prohibits parking along Broadway right now. We propose, as David showed on the screen, to have a no standing school days sign, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Along the western side of Broadway. query whether that is more restrictive, less restrictive. You be the judge, but basically no people cannot park along Broadway right now, Monday through Friday on the majority of Broadway, and that would remain the same. On the northern side of 181st Street, there's two different sets of signage. There's no parking based on a street cleaning rule, and then there's a small portion that has 2-hour metered parking for almost every day of the week except Sunday. We would propose to have a no standing school days sign put there as well. Obviously, this is subject to conversations with DOT school safety, but that also would allow for there to be a clear open area in front of the school so that there are no cars parked legally in those locations.
I have a question, which is probably more for youth and education, but not for now. We can get back to it later. But I mean, I went to high school many, many decades ago in Manhattan, on a very busy avenue at the corner of a very busy two-way street. And it was not your typical high school. It wasn't a neighborhood high school. It drew people from all 5 boroughs, which is unusual for a high school. No one was bused there. We came by public transportation. So I'm just wondering if the assumption is that high school, with, you know, accessibility issues aside, if you're still getting, you know, high school students coming, you know, being, you know, bused there or dropped off by mommy and daddy, but that's for later.
Well, I do, Wayne, you're not giving yourself enough credit, I think. I think that is a land use consideration as well, because it's in the environmental assessment statement. So it's something that the BSA requires to be analyzed. And, you know, the analyses are contained in that document. So you're not so far off base. It's not just a youth and education thing. It's also a land use consideration.
No, I was just wondering that, you know, in the thinking of, you know, schools these days, you know, because I mean, I'm talking about high school. When I went to high school, it was the 1970s, okay? But it's like, no one was bused, you know, nor did we want to be bused because we could run hog wild. Let me go to Vivian because she hasn't spoken yet, then I'll get back to Leo and to Jim.
I realize this isn't a land use issue, but I was curious to what extent the community is going to be invited into the building if you have this wonderful theater, for example, concert hall, whatever. Is there any plan to be integrated into the community in that way?
That's a great question. I can speak to that. I don't have formal plans to share, but I will say that we are developing plans as part of this building and in partnership with our planned financing source to ensure there is a level of community access. We do this informally in some ways through, you know, sports and you know, competitions or chess competitions. So while this will primarily be a dedicated space for the school, we can certainly consider that as we build out our plans for community engagement.
If I could just follow up on Vivian's, you know, question, because we've spoken to a couple other charter schools and they have auditoriums or basically, you know, large meeting spaces. One of the things that the community board does is it has, you know, committee meetings or even general meetings at various locations throughout the community. And we would often, you know, we're looking for spaces that are large enough to accommodate the meeting, but also that are ADA compliant, which new construction has to be. Some are older buildings clearly are not. So when Vivian talks about that, I immediately thought of, you know, the Black Box Theater that could easily accommodate a committee meeting or even maybe even a general meeting. So I think it's things like that, you know. Would the school be open to having, let's be provincial, the community board have meetings, you know, in the facility, and those meetings would typically be this time, you know, in the early evening?
Sure, I'll take that request back to our team and we'll certainly discuss it. I think, you know, we're a neighborhood school and want to make sure that we have good engagement with the community. So I'll share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Going back to Leo.
Thanks again, Wayne. And I encourage David and Jeremy to join me one day and walk 181st. Jeremy, the signs or picture you're looking of the signage,
Is there a place
two
to
things.
plug in? I'm using my battery.
Vivian, you need to mute.
So yeah, at the locations, although there are signage for no standing, no parking, most of that area is taken up by NYPD parking. So much the charter school across the street, and this you could confirm with DOT and NYPD, the charter school across the street on 182nd and between Broadway and Wadsworth. After years of trying to get some adequate parking or drop off with buses, they weren't able to do so. So yeah, I would just encourage you guys, if you want to take a walk, reach out to me. We can walk the area. It's again a traffic nightmare. But that also being said, at the location 218, this is just for everybody's knowledge. I went one day with a DOT representative and an MTA representative, and we observed block up. A school bus had to pick up students from Zeta because they couldn't access the curb line. DOT does not approve no standing, no parking signs for staff anymore. We have schools in our district, public schools, long-standing, who have requested, and unfortunately, DOT doesn't do that. So because of the issues with pickup, and I understand you guys say that because it's high school students, it might be a bit different. You will have middle school students eventually, or we'll start with middle school students. So some kids will be dropped off and picked off, but it's just concerning when you just hear about all these issues. Nonetheless, Wayne, this is my real question is to you for clarity. So the 60-day commenting period comes from is effective the date they submitted the application, or just in case if we have to push forward a resolution, I want to make sure
We have in the past outreached to staff at BSA if there were outstanding issues that we need to address, or if there's something that's going to take longer, and inform them of that. Inquire about what their timeline is, because the BSA process is not quite like ULURP, which is a very set clock.
Yeah.
So we can reach out to BSA and say that, we have the application. From my perspective, the special permit, the zoning related issues are fairly straightforward. However, we have several issues related to that that require more thought. So we need to extend the timeline, and we've been successful in getting that. But the key is communication.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I would.
And to be clear, we would not in any way object to that.
Thank you, David. And thank you, Wayne, for clarifying.
Thank you, Wayne. I have a few points. Number one, it sounds like the 60-day period, unless it started a while ago, will give us plenty of time for all of our committees to have conversations with the folks who are here with us tonight, and we should be able to meet that deadline with no difficulty. Another point is, in general, unless something really crazy goes on, we don't like multiple resolutions at this board. We feel it's more effective to have a joint resolution where all of the issues that, concerning some project or whatever are brought together. But again, we should have more than enough time to do that. Concerning the signage, a very nice tool is the look around feature that Apple Maps has. Those are construction signs that you can tell by the color, that were probably put there during the demolition of the Coliseum Theater. So but again, and de facto, by the way, if you actually look at that same scene, it's all fully parked anyway, which is how this neighborhood works, unfortunately. But again, I think there should be space, and space will be allocated by DOT for the, whatever transportation needs the students of the school have. So, and the final thing I just wanted to mention is, as I said, the police department has a self-enforcement zone where they can just arbitrarily change the direction of a street, throw in angle parking. It's theirs, we'll leave it at that. But the point is, it does not, allow me to finish. It does not extend to, that does not extend south of 182nd Street. So that police self-enforcement zone would not affect the parking at the school.
Yeah, Jim, I'm interested in hearing about what you just said, as well as what Leo mentioned. I think they tie together about how people park in, especially along Broadway, even though the signage does not allow them to do so. Is it your impression that that's police parking with placards, or who is parking there?
Well, that I haven't done, and I don't know whether the view, but well, again, the key is the police has this self-enforcement zone, which does not extend, I believe, south of 182nd Street. So you should be protected from that. And I mean, on the other hand, the police tend to do what they want, but the bottom line, which will actually even affect the police department, especially now that we have what appears to be a reasonable commissioner, is the second we make noises about safety, and obviously everyone, at this Zoom meeting is interested in the safety of everyone, you know, if those parking spaces must be clear for safety, they will be clear for safety, and I'm sure the police will cooperate if the issue is safety. But this used to be actually known. We had several names. We at one point we were the crack capital, but that's not relevant. But this was also the double parking capital of the. It was the double parking capital of the city for years and years. I mean, if you wanted to get out, you know, the next day to go to work, you generally put a note in your window asking someone not to double park next to you, or you made sure you're parked in a place, and I literally had to do this, where you could drive on the sidewalk to get out because people just double park. Now it's much better now. It really is. But traffic, parking up here, it is a little bit wild. But again, once the issue is safety, I think, most people have, friends, relatives, and nobody wants anyone run over. So that shouldn't be a problem.
So, David, Jeremy, Jesse, what I would suggest is I think Leo's suggestion to take a walk with him is a very good one, because there is a difference between what parking and traffic regulations are supposed to be and what things are like, in real life. And, if, and a key to that is enforcement. And if in theory, this signage allows for drop off, it allows for basically fairly reasonable traffic patterns. If that doesn't reconcile with how people are actually using it, I think your application, your design needs to be cognizant of that. And you probably, more so than the community board, want to be advocating with NYPD for enforcement. So I just want to share that with you. It's 10 minutes to 9. You've got lots of invitations to follow up, and I'm going to touch base with the chair of our Health and Environment just to make sure, A, he got my email, and to see if, he's also going to be reaching out to you. You've got a taste of a lot of the other issues that committees are focused on. As I said, from my perspective, and I'm an architect, and I think you did a pretty decent job in fitting the program into the site and taking advantage of the slope, because I was looking at one of the egress corridors that, went nowhere until I realized that when you got the other floor, it was exiting at street level, so that's just fine. And I also like the fact that, we've seen some designs for schools that no longer have gyms, no longer have cafeterias, no longer have, auditoriums, and, you fit a fair amount of, amenity space, for lack of a better term, into, the package. And, it's good to see that, as opposed to, just classrooms and a multifunctional space that's your cafeteria, that's your auditorium, that's your gym, that's everything. But it's also critical to, address the other issues. And give us time to come together with a comprehensive resolution, which we'll have no problem doing. So I thank you for coming. And before we exit, I know we had our colleagues from Department of City Planning. I just wanted to know if anything you want to share with us, Audrey. Not about this, in general.
Right now I have no updates for you, but I'm here to answer any questions that you might have at this time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we spoke to you at length last month and said we wanted to give you time to, I guess, not only digest the Manhattan Plan, but also let city politics work its way out. And I sent an email follow-up so that, sometime in the spring, we want to meet with you again to talk about what is the city going to do vis-a-vis next steps with that Manhattan Plan. So, we'll connect then.
Yes, that is definitely on our radar. And yeah, we're waiting for these policy conversations to happen so we can share with the board.
Bravo. Is there any old business?
We're going to drop before you get to old business. So I just want to thank everybody for their time, for their comments. We heard them. We appreciate them. We will be responding. This is the first conversation, certainly not the last. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you all. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there any old or new business? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
So it is 8:51 and we are adjourned. However, I should have said this at the beginning of the meeting. The reason we are meeting 100% virtually as opposed to hybrid is because of the state of emergency that was declared by the governor. And, per the resolution that was passed, when there's a state of emergency, we have the ability to meet virtually. We don't have to have the in-person quorum. And although the weather isn't really bad today, although I believe the temperature is supposed to drop, so there may be, some committee members or board members or members of the public who are sensitive to that, but the streets are also not cleared everywhere. And as we get into the rest of the week and beginning of next week, the temperature is supposed to drop again. So it's still hazardous for some. So that's why we are meeting. And I think a number of committees have also opted to move their meetings to, at least for this week, and I believe at least the first half of next week, to 100% virtual.
The state of emergency ends before our general meeting, so unless the governor extends it, we would have to meet,
In person.
but no, not, the normal way.
Yep. We'd have to have an in-person quorum.
Exactly. But she may extend the state of emergency, who knows?
Yeah, depends on how frigid it is. So with that, wonderful to see everyone. Welcome once again to our 2 new land use committee members, and have a good day.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Take care all.
Thank you.
And Tanisha, we're supposed to reconnect, right?